Hi, welcome to The Inner Way. I'm your host, Father David Smith. Today we're shooting our program from St. Gallen in Switzerland. We're actually standing just outside Saints Constantine and Helen, a Greek Orthodox church in St. Gallen, Switzerland, where we are visiting family. Today we're going to look at chapter 25 of Unseen Warfare, the great spiritual classic that we've been studying over the past, probably half a year. And chapter 25 is really something that I think a chapter that we can hang on to every moment of our lives. The title of the chapter is On Control of the Tongue. I don't know if you've read St. John Climacus, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, but he calls the tongue the stubborn mistress, the mistress that leads us astray all of the time. A great ship is steered by a little rudder, and your whole life is steered by your tongue. And so this chapter is very much in the same tradition, talking about how we use words. The second chapter starts like this: good feelings are silent. The feelings which seek expression in words are mostly egotistical, since they seek to express what flatters our self-love and can show us, as we imagine, in the best light. So it's talking about our feelings, because very often it is emotion that kind of gets our mouth going. Sometimes, or I should say often, in ways that we wish it wouldn't have. And so the feelings that we have when we're genuinely happy, you have a sense that you just want to experience that happiness. I've experienced this in Switzerland here several times as we're looking out over a beautiful view. We were hiking on a mountain. We hiked on a mountain for about an hour, going up to a restaurant that was up on top of the mountain. It was quite an experience. Those are experiences that, I would like to take. I took pictures of that, but I didn't talk a lot about it, other than to say, wow, this is beautiful. But there are other times when I find myself with people that I only know on a casual basis, not my family members or my closest friends. I don't try to impress those people. I'm not interested in that. But for that kind of person that is just a little bit below being a family member or a close friend, someone I know from church, someone I know from work or from school, or one of my neighbors or something like that, when I talk to those people, or someone I've just met, like traveling here, people on the plane and so on, when I meet those people, I often find myself wanting to say things to them that make me look good. That, I've had great experiences, and my children are so wonderful, and I have such a great job, and things like this. Yes, I know all of these places in the world. I've been there, and so on. You want to impress people. And very often I find that when I'm listening to people, I just, I want to talk. I want to say, oh yeah, I've had that experience, but I know even more than you do. Or, oh yes, I've been to that place, but my experience was better than yours. You always want to do that. And I find that sometimes it's very difficult to keep it from bubbling over, from coming out. And yet, it's part of my job that I want to listen to people and not just tell them about me. I want them to talk to me before I have anything to say to them. It should be that way throughout our lives, that we are able to say, I am listening now. I'm not preparing to talk. I'm not thinking about what I should say, but I'm simply listening. I want to be a person who enjoys knowing another person, enjoys ministering to another person by offering them the opportunity to talk. It gets difficult sometimes when people basically want to talk at you and don't care anything about whether you're listening or not. There are those people, there are a lot of those people in the world, and yet we can offer them something of the light of Christ by showing them genuine love and concern rather than trying to use them the way that they are trying to use us. Now, the chapter goes into detail about how we can use silence to bring about spiritual maturity in our lives. Use silence to do that. It says that a person who is quiet shows spiritual maturity. In fact, the part I'm going to read right now says that. I don't think that's always the case. I think that there are some people that are just naturally quiet people. They don't take the energy to talk. They're not accustomed to talking a lot, and they tend to be very quiet people. That doesn't mean they're spiritually mature at all. It just means they're quiet people, and that's their character. And so by the same token, we don't show ourselves to be spiritually mature simply by guarding our tongue. Guarding our tongue leads us into spiritual maturity, but pretending to be spiritually mature by talking less, by forcing yourself to talk less, is not the idea. The idea is that the more you're able to control your tongue, the more you become spiritually mature. Nevertheless, let me read this section here. It's toward the end of the chapter. Silence is a great power in our unseen warfare and a sure hope of gaining victory. Silence is much beloved of him who does not rely on himself, but trusts in God alone. It is the guardian of holy prayer and a miraculous helper in the practice of virtue. It is also a sign of spiritual wisdom. That's why I offer a little bit of comment on that last phrase. It is a sign of spiritual wisdom. It can be, but it doesn't always have to be. It is the guardian of holy prayer. You know, when I'm talking about how wonderful I am, I have no chance of praying the Jesus prayer. But when I'm listening to people, when I'm listening and allowing them to express themselves to me and showing them care, I can pray in the back of my mind. I don't stop listening to them, but I pray in the back of my mind the Jesus prayer. I think that's what unseen warfare is saying. When you're yapping away, you're not going to pray. But when you are quiet and you're ministering to someone and you're just listening to what they have to say, you have the opportunity to pray the inner prayer. Well, this chapter is wonderful, chapter 25. I urge you to read it. I'm only getting into a very small part of it in this program, and there is so much more there. And not only is there so much more there, but the practice of silence is such a lifelong pursuit. It is always, always, always something that requires watchfulness. And how many times in my life have I found myself walking away from someone and just thinking, God, I talk too much. I want them to talk and I'm talking too much. So it is something that we deal with throughout our lives. Well, brothers and sisters, we're going to continue our study of unseen warfare next week, the chapter 26 on the imagination, which is something that certainly is a problem for all of us. I hope that you can join us for that program, and until then, God bless you, and I'll see you in church.